also to drive buses, as well as to operate other pieces of big equipment. And I will leave that there as it relates to having backup systems in place at the airport. So having said that, can you share with us how this equipment will be used to improve things at the airport, and what other expansion are you expecting to have at the airport to share with the country?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Let me also begin by saying that, I'll take the airport expansion first and we talk about equipment. We have now found ourselves at Grand Lems International Airport, thanks in part for the government's aggressive airlift strategy and the performance of the airlift strategy, where we are faced with the situation that the Grand Lems International Airport, which was constructed probably approximately 40 years ago as a new terminal, that we have, frankly, outpaced in terms of volume what is required at the Grand Lems International Airport. There, particularly on weekends, we have a situation where we do not have enough space on the parking apron to accommodate aircraft. You will see on occasion that we will have maybe 2 aircraft lining up behind each other. And we also have cargo and we have a private jet facility. Whereas on the opposite side, we have an apron for the parking of private jets. We also have a core component of cargo cargo flights that come into Barbados. And we also have our regional carriers that come into Grand Lems International Airport. Added to that, in terms of the throughput, Grand Lems International Airport, when it was constructed 40 years ago, really didn't envisage that it will have the number of throughput, the number of passengers coming through the Grand Lems International Airport. You recall just recently that the Grand Lems International Airport announced a record of 2.4 million passengers, both inbound and outbound, at the Grand Lems International Airport, which again is another record for the Grand Lems International Airport and for Barbados as a tourism island. What we now have to do is to move with alacrity to ensure that we expand the Grand Lems International Airport. As I indicated in my opening remarks, the airport expansion in the first phase will be approximately Barbados $120 million. We have to do so if we are going to accommodate the number of passengers coming through the Grand Lems International Airport, along with the supporting services. And I want to take this opportunity as well, Honourable Member, to thank you, because in your capacity before a senior minister responsible for infrastructure, you would work with us and you were on the many 8:15 a.m. calls every Friday, planning out the work for the airport expansion. And of course, you're always welcome to join us, obviously with the appropriate measures being put in place. But I really want to say thank you because you played a significant role. I say thank you on behalf of the ministry as well. As it relates to equipment, we are going to be outfitting the Grand Lems International Airport with more modern equipment. I must remind you that with the CAF project, we have set aside $17 million. The CEO of the Grand Lems International Airport, Mr. Bourne, would have mentioned some. But one of the things that we often forget is not to explain, we should not forget to explain, what this equipment means. Because, for example, you have the monopulse secondary surveillance radar, known as the MSSR. What does that mean to the average Barbadian? So what I will do is to, and that's, for example, equipment for a new radar system of $7.2 million. We also have the automated terminal information system. So what I would like to do at this point is to invite Mr. Bourne just to take us quickly through, so that you give Barbadians an understanding of what we're doing with respect to upgrades, but also to remind the public that this is not in reaction to what happened at the Grand Lems International Airport last Saturday, that this is a plan that we have in place. The Ministry of Finance had agreed the funding for CAF, Latin Development Bank of America, Latin American Development Bank. We have the funding, $17 million. The government has also agreed to fund the expansion of the airport with another $120 million. And then in between there, and before leading up to the new financial year, the airport would have also made significant investments in respect of the plant and also other equipment. And I would also add, and I think it'd be appropriate as well for the CEO of Caribbean Aircraft Handling to also comment on the investment, because they've made an investment in Caribbean Aircraft Handling in excess of $7 million. And that was as a direct response to the volume of air traffic. So I'll pause and I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer of the Grand Yamas International Airport to comment on the equipment and any other points on airport expansion before we go to the CEO of the Caribbean Aircraft Handling, Mr. Lemuel Padner. Mr. Bourne?
Thank you, Honourable Minister. As it relates to some of the equipment that I mentioned earlier, and for further explanation and to give some context for the general public, as it relates to the MSSR, it's basically a tool. I mean, the Honourable Member for Christchurch did outline how compact the airplane could look on weekends, but what must be taken into consideration is before they get on the ground, there's actually congestion in the airspace, and a lot of these tools are really geared towards enabling the capacity of the controller to perform a safe and orderly, notwithstanding the expeditious movement of aircraft. So basically, a MSSR provides interpolation between various aircraft and their system, and provides the controller with a target, as we would see if you watch a lot of movies on the screen, and that's where they would undertake their various control procedures, vectoring, etc. Similarly, as you get closer into the island, the instrument landing system, and if you could compare it to flying a kite within a funnel, the number of electronic beams, both laterally and longitudinally, 3% from the surface to the touchdown zone, and basically around 10 to 15 miles, pilots would basically, as you would say, latch on to this, and it's almost, to put it in Barbadian parlance, as hauling in a kite. So these pieces of equipment help facilitate the air traffic controllers to have a much more appreciative and controlled action within the airspace. Notwithstanding that, then you probably have to go to visual flight, etc., and that's less of a controlled airspace for the controller. So most of the pieces of equipment are basically geared towards enhancing the airspace capacity and also increasing the safety of the airspace.
Thank you very much. And I also asked the CEO of Caribbean Aircraft Handling to speak on the investments that they have undertaken as a direct response to the increased airlift. Mr. Badmore?
Aircraft arrivals at Grantley Adams International Airport, as I would call it, in the sweet spot. The airlines now tend to arrive, most of them, between 2 and 4 o'clock. Specific to Caribbean Aircraft Handling, between 2 and 4, we have approximately 15 arrivals. And if you work out the aircraft carrying the stairs, we're talking about 30 stairs in that period we have to use. We have approximately 3,000 passengers arriving and departing, in that time zone. When we look at the bags, you're talking approximately 180,000 pounds of bags in either direction, with about 4,500 bags moving in either direction in that time zone. It is imperative, therefore, that we have the requisite equipment to support that activity. You would appreciate that we have on the ground, the aircraft on the ground for approximately an hour and a half to facilitate a complete aircraft turn. We have to do the arrival, which involves the disembarkation of passengers, We have to have and to ensure that the bags and the cargo is offloaded. I alluded to the numbers already. And of course, in the mix of that, we have to provide for cleaning of the aircraft, the security checks. And when I say cleaning, not only the cabin cleaning, but we also have to do the lavatory clean for the aircraft so that when the aircraft is ready to depart, the lavatories are already clean and ready for departure. We also have to upload water in this hour and a half. And we have to ensure that passengers are then emplaned to meet the departure time. So within those 2 hours and hour and a half, sorry, you have to ensure you have the requisite manpower and equipment power to provide for an expeditious turn because like any other business, the KPIs for aviation, safety, security, efficiency, and on-time departures is mandatory. It is mandatory. So in an effort to fulfill all of these goals and to meet these requirements, we have to have the requisite equipment. As I said, the human resource, but we also need the equipment resource to provide for the turn. Enough stairs, enough baggage carts, conveyor belts, lavatory trucks, water trucks, high loaders. And these are all required to ensure that the bags, the passengers with the stairs can get off. We can ensure the lavatories are clean, so we have the lavatory truck to facilitate that process. And we have to ensure the water truck is ready. And because we are in a salt environment, it requires constant refurbishment, constant updating, because we suffer badly from the rust effect at Grantley Adams International Airport. Therefore, our ministry and our company has embarked on refleeting and renewing. And as the minister indicated, so far for fiscal 26, we have invested $5.6 million in refleeting for Caribbean aircraft handling. Over the last 4 years, we have done approximately $8 million, and we have made another request for fiscal, for this coming financial year, for additional $4.5 million to ensure we have the equipment to facilitate the quick turns that we have to do, the timely turns, because these aircraft have to get back to their bases for other operational reasons, to go to other destinations across the world. A delay at Barbados can negatively impact the entire flight program of an aircraft, and we have to ensure that we maintain the on-time facilitation, we maintain the safety and efficiency to ensure customer service is maintained. And our mantra there is we want to exceed our customers' expectations. Therefore, we have to ensure we have the right equipment. I want to say that part of the new equipment that we have, as I speak, there are persons who have come in to commission new equipment. We will have, for the first time in Barbados, the first purpose-built ambulift for passengers with disabilities. We have ambulift at the airport, but they were not purpose-built for persons with disabilities. They were manufactured to facilitate, but not built from structure to provide for those passengers. And I have at the moment a team, as I speak, commissioning a new purpose-built ambulift that can facilitate passengers. We have baggage tractors being commissioned today as well. We have on the sea 4 new covered stairs with the requisite covers and the application as if it were a jet bridge. It has that type of effect to ensure that our passengers are facilitated. If the rain is falling, we reduce the opportunity for them to be soaked with rain as they deplane. These are things that we are doing in terms of facilitating the customer experience. In addition, we are ensuring that we also fulfill the mandate of the government to reduce emissions, and hence we have also employed and procured equipment that are electric. We have electric steers, electric tractors, we have electric buggies to facilitate our cabin cleaners. And these are some of the initiatives that we're doing to ensure the customer experience is improved significantly. And those passengers that come into Barbados, bear in mind, we are the first persons they meet, and we are the last persons they will see when they leave. So we want to ensure that the service level is of the highest standard and highest quality. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just make additional remarks, with your permission. And I think the points made by the CEO are of Caribbean Aircraft, and those points are very important, because it is important to know that we have two ground handling companies at Grand Lems International Airport, the Goddard Catering Group and the Caribbean Aircraft Handling. And the investments, and I dare say both entities made, and I want to compliment both entities, because when I became minister, we sat down with both entities and we planned out based on what we expected to be future expansion to Grand Lems International Airport. And both companies responded with investments, significant investments in capital expenditure. But with respect to the modernization of equipment at Grand Lems International Airport, it is also very important for another reason. We are faced with new aircraft being engineered with new technology, and the technology being used on those aircraft would have to be, Grand Lems International Airport will have to keep pace with the new technology. And perhaps with your permission, I can ask Mr. Halliburn just to speak very quickly to the rationale between improvements in equipment at the Grand Lems International Airport in response to new aircraft technology. Mr. Bourne.
Thank you, Minister. As it relates to technology and the improvement, it not only goes on the aspect of the ANS side, and I think it's actually buoyant at this point in time as we transition the ANS to AIM and the equipment and technology that will facilitate such. Within the Grand Lems International Airport, we are also looking to meet the trend and needs and the change in, we've just implemented our RMS system that should be rolling out at the beginning of April, a project implemented within the operations department and the director of operations and supported by the engineering team. This would facilitate a smooth transition within the airspace to landing and parking and facilitation. But as we build out our airspace and the capacity, modernization of our airspace is critical, especially as we want to transition to PBN and move away from a lot of the ground-based equipment that we're using. So the equipment that we're really investing in is paramount, and it would also enable the air traffic controllers to have a less stressful job and more of a monitoring role, rather than having to initiate a lot of physical activity and physical work within the airspace.
Thank you very much, Minister. For my final follow-up question, again, keeping with all things airport and the expansion. Barbados is one of the few countries of the world, I think there are 4 or 5, that have a Concorde. And clearly, the Concorde that is currently there will not be taken to the skies anymore because it will not be able to pass any aviation tests. So having said that, what plans do you have for the Concorde, and particularly the Concorde experience area, in terms of expansion, if any, or any further uses at the airport?
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Let me also say that the Concorde experience also was upgraded. The Grand Lems International Airport would have made an investment in that experience. The Concorde experience is currently being used for a number of the A to C transfers, and because of the volume of air to sea transfers in Barbados and the pressure it would have otherwise put on the main terminal, that facility is being used. It is also used for private functions at the discretion of the Grand Lems International Airport. But in addition to that, what the Grand Lems International Airport has done is that they've also increased retail outlets at the Concorde experience, both food and beverage and other outlets for increased visitor spend. I will ask Mr. Halliburn as well to speak to some of the future plans that we have for the facility, but we also intend to utilize it fully. And I must say, particularly during the winter period, it is highly utilized. And we are, of course, making extra revenue as a result of the initiatives that the Grand Lems International Airport Board and Management would have implemented. But I'll yield to Mr. Hadley Bourne for additional comments. Mr. Bourne.
Thank you, Minister. Following the return of the Concordia experience to the control of Grantley Adams International just post-COVID, we would have decided within the management team to really utilize this piece of equipment and also the space. I remember initially coming out of COVID and we wanted an area to restart and do the COVID testing that the Honourable Prime Minister had asked if we could facilitate reopening with a COVID testing area in there. And I had said to her and then Minister, the Honourable Senator Lisa Cummins, that I had other ideas. So initially it was a three-prong attack that we would have utilized. We recognized that within the main terminal and the growth in the air-to-sea sector, that the terminal was really over capacity. So we initially spent in the previous financial year $6 million in renovating the facility to seat between 600 and 800 passengers. That proved to be quite successful, and I think we've actually increased the capacity to 900 seats this year. And within the stakeholdership and the responses from the cruise lines, David, you could attest to this, that they've been quite happy and successful with the work we've done. Similarly, as the Minister alluded to, we also use it as an entertainment center. I think BTMI had leased it from us on the previous year as part of their festival, and I think that was quite a success, and there have been a number of events in there subsequently, although limited. So the aim for the Concordia experience is to utilize it, especially during the busy winter period, and then also to have it as a commercial space when not in use. The current business development director for the airport, Ms. Knight, I've tasked her with an RFP to actually have it used as a tourist attraction during the non-peak season to also assist with the tourism product and offerings that we have on island. And notwithstanding, it has even now become a place where we've been able to undertake a number of refugees and humanitarian functions within the aviation space, especially at times during the peak season when they had limited capacity within the airport, the hotel plant. So that is it in a nutshell. Basically to say it is planned to be commercialized for both aeronautical and non-aeronautical activities.
And if I add, Mr. Chairman, Lisa, I forget, the issue with the staffing as well, I would not want to forget the Aeronautical Information Services Department. We're also moving apace to recruit an additional 15 persons for the AAS as we prepare to transfer from the Aeronautical Information Service to Aeronautical Information Management Unit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those very good and very fulsome answers. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for Michael Christchurch East.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, allow me to add my voice to the long list of congratulations and commendations that you and your team and your ministry have received for your performance over the last couple of years, and in particular over last year. So allow me to start by saying that. Now, Minister, there's something that I've wondered about for a couple of years. I raised it before, and I'm gonna raise it again. We look at sports tourism, And I think when we see, like I see the paraphernalia and advertisements from the Tourism Authority and related, I guess, institutions under you when there's golf. You see it when there's cricket. You see it with certain other things. But I do believe that there are other non-traditional avenues that we need to explore. Let me give you the low-hanging fruit. As you know, I have an interest in shooting. And anytime there is a shooting competition in Barbados, for every competitor that comes, most of them bring their family with at least about 4 people. So you might have 50 people or 100 people competing and 500 guests coming in for it. And they all look for some place to stay. They stay at different places. They go and they eat. They hear the children and the family go and experience Barbados and contribute to the economy. But I know as a fact that shooting receives little to no support from the tourism sector in terms of formal support to get to grow shooting as an imported sport. Now, if you follow the sports news, some of our most successful athletes over the last 5 years have been the shooters. You keep seeing that this person came back from international competition, this person is now a grandmaster, this person is a whatever. Maybe it's not sexy to publicize shooting in the press, but our shooters are probably among the highest ranked in their sports of any sporting person in the international sport in Barbados. And I think we are missing a golden opportunity. I also know as a fact that a number of the clubs have been developing their facilities. So to call a club, the Clear Target Shooting Association, which initially was a thing that Maxwell used to shoot from, and he represented Barbados in Olympics from time dot. We keep sending Olympians to shoot in skeet shooting, in shotgun shooting. That has now developed a pistol arm. And they've gone from facilitating one aspect of the sport to probably facilitating 5 or 6 different disciplines. And their plant has expanded to almost 10 times what it was. So they're investing of their own accord. I think I'll give you enough introduction. What is being done to expand the possibilities for investment and subsequently a return, a tourism return, by considering non-traditional sporting partnerships?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Well, in respect of the support, we have currently a Tourism Development Act. And the Act makes it clear that if you qualify as a tourism product, there are concessions and other concessionary benefits that you receive. So what I will encourage those who are involved in that sport to reach out to the ministry. We have dedicated officers who deal with that, and as they can talk them through it, the application process. And if they meet the requirements, of course, they be deemed to be a tourism product, and the associated concessionary benefits would be granted, as we do grant for other persons or entities, I should say, who apply. The other issue would have to do with the assistance that can be rendered, for example, from the hotel sector. If persons are coming here, for example, for a competition, depending on the time, we can better out special rates to accommodate them and their families. The challenge that we have is that oftentimes when you're successful as a destination and when we're growing at the rate we're growing, oftentimes it's difficult for some people in the sector then to lower rates. But what we should do, and what we will be committed to working with the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, to see if we can have special rates for not only generally for sports and other areas of interest who wish to come to Barbados and stay with us. It is often a challenge, particularly in the winter season, to get rates that are what we deem to be very reasonable because of the demand for Barbados' product, particularly in the winter. So that's another way that we can assist by having dialogue with our stakeholders, particularly the BHT and their members, to see how best we can build out. That's the second point. The third point would be, obviously through the Ministry of Sport, there's some provisioning for assistance. I'm aware that the Ministry of Sport would help key organizations, sporting organizations, with respect to assistance. And we've seen that because I'm aware, for example, there are some other sporting organizations that would reach out to the Ministry of Sport and they would get some assistance in terms of funding. But sports tourism continues to remain a critical arm. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the Basketball Super Bowl. We had a number of visitors who came to Barbados with their surfboards. In fact, I was leaving Barbados the following Monday morning, and I saw the number of persons who were on that flight who come to Barbados to participate in the Basketball Super Bowl, and were heading back home with and let me also tell you that the plane was full, absolutely. They had a 100% load factor on that particular flight going out to Miami in the morning. So I believe those are 3 key areas, but the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. will continue to support sport. We have a dedicated sports manager within the facility. Perhaps I should invite the CEO of the BTMI to also give further thought and explanation on this. Ms. Andrea Franklin.
Good afternoon, Andrea Franklin, CEO of BTMI. The sports department at the BTMI continues to work with a number of sporting organizations. Right now, we work with approximately 14 different disciplines across Barbados as it relates to sports, sporting events, sports tourism initiatives. So one of the things that we are looking at, Minister, is trying to educate some of our umbrella sporting organizations in terms of how to work with the BTMI when you're targeting events, the best times of the year, because we see sport as a critical element in filling our trough periods in terms of outside of our key winter periods, as Minister just alluded to. So in the May to October period in particular, sports tourism is critical for the destination and helping to build our numbers during that period. So working with the sporting organizations to determine the best times to host events and how to work with us as an organization. And certainly we facilitate in terms of also the outreach to our private sector partners. We work closely with the BHTA in terms of facilitating special rates. If you have groups coming in, we will liaise with them in terms of welcome events and stuff like that, in terms of helping to plan and facilitating the events. One thing from the sports tourism, our sports department as well, is we work closely with the Ministry of Sports as well as the National Sports Council. We do have an advisory team that work with our sports manager in terms of the various disciplines that we target and identifying the gaps or where the needs are, identifying major events. And we do promote a robust sporting events calendar across all of our markets. And certainly if there are disciplines that are not on there, we are happy to take a look and add them. So if there's certain events within the shooting fraternity, we can definitely have a conversation in terms of what can be added to the sports calendar that's promoted globally. But for us, it's also about working with the umbrella organizations, the governing bodies across the disciplines who pull all the various clubs, et cetera, together to be able to create a synergy with all of the different disciplines. So we are happy to have a further conversation with the shooting fraternity.
So I'll definitely pass that on. So linked to that now is connectivity. When Bajans think of traveling to the United States for whatever, we automatically think Miami. Bajans' first point of reference is Miami. If you are adventurous and you get past Miami, then you're looking at New York. But I believe that we're missing an opportunity, and I know, Minister, you've spoken about this before, but I'm looking at your product development and your estimates, and I'm wondering what have you included or what provision have you made for trying to expand our access to, for example, the West Coast United States. Those people vacationing in Hawaii, I think Hawaii was far from Barbados, from there as Barbados is, but they can get there directly. So what are we looking, or are we looking at anything to actually bridge and open that market? So not just the eastern coast of the United States, but also expanding our ability to access directly the West Coast and a whole different set of clientele. And that, once again, has implications for sports.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. And before I ask the CEO to come back and join us for a comment, the issue of connectivity is not lost on us. We have, certainly since last year, and certainly in the first phase of the airlift strategy, we sought to get airlift returned to Barbados from key source markets. The second phase of it has to do with airlift, not only out of Europe, but also out of the United States of America. We had last year met with American Airlines at the Dallas headquarters. I was there along with the CEO and the and the officer responsible, director responsible for that market. We met with the airlines to review our strategy with respect to how we can have services coming out of the West Coast of America. Truth be told, LAX airport was undergoing some refurbishment, but they also indicated that it would be a challenge coming out of LAX. But what we did ask is if we can get flights coming out to Dallas, which is a major connecting hub. We are still working on direct lift out of the West Coast, but we are also looking not only at Dallas, we're also looking at Chicago. Now there's some interesting developments with respect to the number of aircraft coming into Chicago, where the authority is planning to put a limit on the number of aircraft. And of course, there's much competition for airlift coming out of Chicago. It therefore means that if we cannot get direct lift out of LAX, Los Angeles Airport, for example, we will have to work very closely. But it's part of the broader strategy, because there's a lot of international traffic coming in, particularly out of Asia and the Pacific, going into Dallas. And what we're doing as part of this strategy is that if we want to drive additional airlift from Asia and the Pacific, that we can filter that airlift through Dallas and then look to see if we can have a non-stop service from Dallas to Barbados. We had it in the past, we lost it, and we are seeking to recover lost ground many, many years ago, not under this administration, but under another administration. But we are working with our partners in the industry to see if we can build it out. Of course, we have to plan it properly. We never want to have an airline starting service into Barbados and then there's a cessation of the service. It also speaks to connectivity and how the airlines are billing connectivity. A lot of the traffic, oftentimes, you see it, for example, in Miami, where they would drive all the traffic into Miami and they will come out to Miami. Fortunately, what we have done is that with Copa Airlines, persons who wanted, for example, to go into Latin and South America, who before would have to go up to Miami and then come down. With Copa and Copa increasing, I've said, the services to Barbados, we now have a situation where you can fly into Panama and you can go onwards to Brazil or Chile or wherever you want to go, that part of the world, including Argentina, with a very short connection period. Because if you go into Panama, for example, within 2 hours you connect and you're heading to your destination. Whereas if you go, for example, to Miami, you may have to wait until the evening flights, which would probably, or night flights, I should not be evening night flights, which would probably depart about 11 or just after 11 to get to the destination the following morning. So that's part of the what we're doing, also building out Barbados as a connectivity hub for the Eastern Caribbean. Because persons, for example, may have challenges with visas and want to go into Mexico, they want to go in any part of Latin and South America. They're now coming into Barbados with a regional carrier, connected onto Copa, for example, and they're heading out. So the strategy, to answer your question, is our continued engagement. I must tell you, and perhaps the ministry made it look too easy, But when you're going in to negotiate for airlift, it is very, very difficult. You have to look at passenger loads. You have to look at the slots at the airport. You also have to look at the numbers in terms of source markets. And you also have, particularly in some cases where you have direct non-stop services from a particular destination. So it looks easy to say, yes, we brought airlift, but to get airlift into a destination, it's never, never easy. It's a very difficult. And you're faced with it because, frankly, we don't own an airline. And we have to work with the carriers in order to drive the lift to Barbados. But I give you the assurance that we will continue to focus on not only the West Coast, but Midwest as well, because that is where we are growing. The fact that, for example, Atlanta, when you go and you sit down, you talk with the network planners and the senior persons. If I were to use Atlanta as a point, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport is a major connection point for airlines, particularly those who, particularly Delta, sorry, who controls a large part of the slots there, the gates there. And a lot of their traffic come in to connect to move on. So it's just a matter of us continuing to ensure we work very closely with our airline partners and that we build out the market. But then once we build out the market, we're gonna have to support it. I'll pause and I'll ask the CEO if she wishes of the BTMI, if she wishes to comment further.
Thank you, Minister. Just to add to what Minister is, what he just referred to, in terms of stimulating the demand on the West Coast, we continue to work within that area. Our U.S. team continues to ensure that brand Barbados is visible on the West Coast, because in terms of being able to attract airlift, one of the main things that we have to do is ensure that the demand is there and that we therefore are able to sustain any lift that we attract. And so in terms of what we say, seeding the market, ensuring that the brand Barbados is visible on the West Coast. California actually is one of our primary markets coming out of the U.S., even without direct service. And we continue to work in that area. And we will be building, adding additional resources to heighten the awareness and the activity within that market. So work continues in terms of the generation of interest within the West Coast of the USA, while we continue to have the consultations and the negotiations with the airlines.
Thank you. This is my last entry. I noticed that there's nothing in the estimates, like zero, for both the Caves of Barbados and Barbados Conference Services. So is that a message or is that going to be a move-in?
Well, depends on how you look at it. It could be a message or both. But what I wish to say is that the Barbados Conference Services last year would have benefited from a transfer from central government to help it with its capital expenditure program. The facility has been there for a number of years. A lot of remedial work, which ought to have been done, that work essentially wasn't done. So we've started, the board and the management have started the remedial works. You will know that Ross is the major tenant there, and we have to ensure that we maintain the place and keep it in pristine condition as we continue to build out, because Ross University as a university is not only a university. What it does for us in tourism, it contributes substantially to persons who, students in the first place who visit Barbados and who have to work here, who study here in Barbados. You also have staff who work, who live abroad and come to Barbados to work, but also we have friends and family associated with the students and also the workforce. And therefore, we have to ensure that we continue to build out that facility. Caves of Barbados, the government would have embarked on a loan facility for us. That facility was completed in the latter part of the last financial year. And therefore, in the estimates, you don't see anything in Caves of Barbados. There are remedial works that are ongoing at the Caves of Barbados to ensure the stability of the cave, and the board is tasked with that, and they're doing an excellent job in that respect. But we will continue wherever possible to engineer the success of these state-owned enterprises so they don't have a heavy call on central government. As you're well aware, the amount of money that we have to spend in aviation, not only in training, but in equipment, and then obviously, you know, I always ask for some more money to help market Barbados. And therefore, it is necessary that we try our best to engineer and ensure that SOEs can stand on their own. And if they stand on their own, it would obviously have less of a cash call on central government of Barbados. So I really want to thank the Barbados Conference Services and also the CAVES for all that they continue to do. There is an expansion, a capital program that is in place at the Barbados Conference Services Limited. There's a lot of remedial work that has to be done. But also, my view is that the facility also has potential for even more growth. And that is something that I will be discussing with the board in terms of how we build out additional facilities that can contribute not only to visitor spend, but also increase earnings. And that has to do with the fact that I believe with a conference facility the size that they have, I think we can definitely earn more from that facility by doing some additional works. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning to your team. Good afternoon now to you and to your team. And again, congratulations on the wonderful work that's being done in this ministry. I have so many questions, but naturally my mind goes to the ministry and its work in maritime. I think you've had great acclaim this year, your team, for the work you would have done in tourism generally. But I think people do not appreciate the amount of work that your team did in the maritime space. And when I review the estimates, it's only a moderate increase of maybe 700,000 from 1.5 to 1.55 to 2.3 or so $1 million. But I would like for you to use this opportunity to tell us the developments in the maritime space. When I had the portfolio, I had the view that this presented significant opportunity for us if we got the legislation right. And I know, Minister, you have done a lot of work to bring a lot of that legislation here. What is happening particularly in the maritime space? I have some more specific questions, but generally, I begin with that question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Before I ask Ms. Najla King to speak on this matter, let me also extend thanks to her and her team, and certainly the officers at the ministry, including the administrative officers who would work tirelessly in preparing a lot of the cabinet papers that would have resulted in over more than 10 pieces of legislation going to Parliament. Let me also take this opportunity as well to thank the Chief Parliamentary Counsel and her team for all the work that we've done there. We certainly continue to earn valuable foreign exchange from Barbados' ship registry. I believe we are earning in excess of $4 million per year as a result of the work that we do there. But as a result of what we have done in terms of meeting the audit requirements from the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, we've also positioned Barbados now as a place where we can benefit from even more earnings from the ship registry. Part of the challenge that we had in the past, and Minister, you'll be acutely aware of it, is that our maritime sector was not up to speed. We've now brought that up to speed in terms of the regulatory arrangement. Obviously, we will have to make amendments because nothing remains the same. We have to change as regulations and conventions become even more relevant in this area, particularly as it relates to the dark shadow and the fleet and so on. But we will continue to work to build out the sector based on all the hard work that we've put into the maritime space. The Barbados Maritime Transport Administration is the agency tasked with that work. In addition to that, we also have an opportunity to link now shipping to investments as part of the bills that we brought to this Parliament, and now the laws are enacted. Excuse me. And also, what we are doing now with respect to Barbados Online Maritime Regulatory Support System. Excuse me. I'll pause and ask the Director of Maritime Affairs to comment. Ms. Nadja King.
A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. My name is Najla King, Director of Ocean Affairs in the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport.
Sorry, I'm not sure if your mic is on, if you're just speaking soft, Ms. King. We can't hear you.
Continue. In the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. There have been several developments with the passage of the new suites of maritime legislation. I will start at the place of the registry. And first of all, thanks for the comments and the recognition of the work that the ministry did collectively as a team to bring us here. So our international registry is based in London, and it registers ships of above 150 gross tons engaged on international seagoing shipping activities. It ranks the third largest in the Caribbean and in the top 30 globally. Prior to the passage of the maritime legislation, we had a very outdated regulatory framework that was not in alignment with international maritime standards set by the International Maritime Organization, IMO. Now that we have passed the legislation from 2024 to 2025, namely the Merchant Shipping Suite of Laws, Marine Transport Emissions Control Suite of Laws, amongst others, we are now in a position that our flag is ranked as a whitelisted flag, meaning that it incorporates the key and mandatory IMO instruments on safety, security, and protection of the marine environment. This encourages ship owners to want to continue to flag their ships with us because a compliant ship augurs well for a high-ranking international profile, and you're associated, therefore, with a registry that is doing well with corresponding positive benefits then for ships affiliated with the registry. For us, it also helps us to expand our services to those international ships, as now the registry can issue IMO statutory certificates, whereas before we had to outsource to other compliant flags to do it for us. Additionally, we have digitalized many of the shipping services, thanks to the Barbados Port Inc. team, who develop and manages and operates the Maritime Single Window, which is a digital clearance tool that facilitates international maritime traffic inbound and outbound, and overall improves efficiency of ships calling at port, so that the less time they spend at berth waiting to be cleared, there would also be less emissions generated during the waiting period. And the Maritime Single Window has also enhanced maritime security through ensuring that ships, the crews, the passenger, and the cargo are monitored through accurate and secured data interchange systems. Other developments coming on stream, there will soon be launched a Barbados Online Maritime Regulatory Support System that would digitize other pieces like the Shipping Domestic Vessel Suite of Laws, the same merchant shipping, marine transport emissions, so that we can be more efficient in delivering on the workflows stemming from those other suites of legislation that go beyond vessel clearance, such as issuance of vessel licenses, permits, monitoring and evaluating flag, port, and coastal state control activities, amongst others. There's also the training and capacity development component. The IMO mandates us to ensure a competent seagoing and shore-based maritime workforce. So on October 8th last year, we partnered with BIMAP, BCC, and SJPA in launching the National Maritime Training and Employment employment program. The program is continuously being built out with these entities collaboratively, and we also envisage this year to encourage other institutions and the local shipping business community to become part of the program so that we can expand training opportunities in academic, technical, and vocational maritime areas. This is important for continuity and the survival of the sector because not everyone wants to go to sea. There are those that prefer shore-based maritime jobs, and then also at the end of life for seafarers can come to shore and transition their skills and experience that they would have gained at sea in areas such as vessel management, vessel surveying, training, etc. We also are currently undergoing a feasibility study with the International Maritime Organization in establishing green shipping corridors as part as continually meeting the decarbonization standards. A green shipping corridor is essentially a maritime trade route between ports, whereas the ships using the corridors would use least emitting or zero emitting fuels. And this would also create green-oriented maritime job opportunities. It is good for the environment and also from a public health perspective from coastal communities that are proximate to port areas. And it would also provide opportunities for the energy sector to provide marine e-fuels to ships as we continue to transition in the international green shipping era. Thank you.
Perhaps, Chair, through you, the Director of Ocean Affairs would perhaps want to talk about the link to shipping investments, because this is an area which could be very, very beneficial to Barbados. Ms. Nadja King?
Excuse me, Minister, clarify.
Go ahead.
You said
the link to shipping investments. You know, we brought legislation and which would facilitate investments in terms of financial investments in the sector.
Yes. Under the Merchant Shipping Act, we have expanded the concept of shipping as we traditionally know it, just cargo and cruise shipping. It also provides expansion in other domains such as registration of vessels engaged in the offshore oil and gas industry, the mineral mining industry, and special purpose vessels, for example, vessels that engage in subsea, laying of subsea cables, dredging, offshore physical infrastructure developments. And then there's also the merchant shipping, maritime banking finance framework, in which the regime seeks to attract those interests in the financial services sector that understand the shipping sector and can provide tailor-made maritime financial services, as shipping is a very capital-intensive industry. So on one front, the legislation is compliant in terms of ensuring we align with international maritime standards, but it is also developmental in scope, recognizing that shipping has gone far beyond just cargo and cruise shipping, and it embraces other unique niches and domains, even such as in the field of autonomous shipping, for example. And we have essentially built out frameworks to capture and harness opportunities in these niche areas of the maritime sector.
Thank you very much, Minister. Seeing that you preempted my question, I have another one for you then. It's a follow-up question, Chair. The reference was made, obviously, to the ship registry and the work that we would have done in relation to the ships that use our flag. But all of us accept that we are living in very dangerous, difficult, perhaps uncertain times when it comes to vessels who are now operating on the ocean in relation to maritime security. So to what extent have we, recognizing the dangers in the world, have we been able to ensure, if indeed we can ensure, that the ships that carry our flag operate with a certain degree of safety, that Barbadians who are on board some of these vessels carrying other flags are able to travel with a certain degree of safety? And having strengthened the regulatory framework, what have you really put in place specifically for those persons who ply their trade on the sea to ensure that either if it's Barbadians or persons under a Barbadian flag, that persons can have a greater degree of certainty that they're not exposing themselves to undue risk?
Thank you, Minister. Before I yield to and ask the Director of Ocean Affairs to comment, and perhaps the Director of Ocean Affairs will confirm this, I believe that Barbados' ship registry is either in the top 13 or the top 15 in the world. It is known, and plus, in addition to all the work that Naja and her team continue to do for us, we've so been able to position Barbados as a flag that can be carried internationally on international waters without fear of compromise. And I can also tell you, I can never confirm or ensure the degree of safety because you never know what happens at sea. But those vessels that carry the Barbados flag, what I can confirm is that they are not only following the IMO standards, but because of all the legislative work we've done within the maritime space, that we have more entities that are now attracted to the Barbados flag. But I'm not going to go into the logistics of port state and so on. I will ask the expert. Let me congratulate her on her appointment as Director of Ocean Affairs, Ms. Naja King, and I will ask her to just answer and provide follow-up answers to a question, Minister. Ms. King.
Thank you. So as it relates to maritime safety and security protocols, we take our guidance from the IMO, as I would have previously explained. Right now, the conditions in the international market, we face hostilities, as we all know, and what we have in place is that vessels engaged on international trade transiting high-risk areas follow certain safety protocols issued by the Barbados Maritime Ship Registry in London. These protocols stem from the IMO's International Ship and Port Facility Security Code, known in the industry as the ISPS code. This code outlines detailed measures at varying levels to detect and deter maritime threats. So ships calling at ports would be subjected to the ISPS code, and the port in those particular jurisdictions will guide on the level of security measures the ship must comply with, depending on the nature of the situation. In addition, our Merchant Shipping Act allows for the contracting and placement of privately contracted armed security personnel aboard ships, especially those transiting high-risk areas, because obviously seafarers cannot be asked to perform security functions. It's not their area of training. And for their safety too, the IMO ensures that seafarers do just what they're supposed to do, which is to operate the ship safely, but not be involved in any situation that can put their life at risk. So apart from the ISPS code and the bulletins issued from the Barbados Maritime Ship Registry, we would also take guidance as issued from the United Nations Security Council, as the IMO, as I earlier mentioned, is a specialized agency of the UN. So we also adhere to wider United Nations security protocols when they're issued. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My last follow-up question. Minister, I think both yourself and Ms. King raised the idea of the maritime single window. And I know we put a lot of work into the single window, and I would like to know in practical terms what benefits we have been able to see from leading, I think, Barbados really led in this space in many ways, the maritime single window.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will ask not only Ms. Naja King to respond, but also Mr. David John Marie, who's CEO of the port. They have done considerable work with respect to this, which is now contributing to efficiency with respect to the electronic transmission of documents. I'll start with Ms. Naja King, and then I'll ask Mr. David John Marie to add to her comments. Mr. King.
To properly answer this question, we would really have to defer to Barbados Port Inc., who administers and implements the maritime single window. But from a regulatory perspective, the port must be congratulated for its timeliness and efficiency in fully implementing the maritime single window in terms of taking it from its traditional state where it was just a tool for internal training. Now we have ships using it even to submit documents relating to their marine pollution performance status, for example, the exhaust gas cleaning system, the EGCS form. You would have heard us mention about the IMO's decarbonization mandate. And one of the things about this decarbonization regime is that the devices used on board ships to clean the atmosphere from ship source emissions also have the negative impact of those residues being polluting to the marine environment. So to counteract that, the Marine Transport Emissions Control Act requires that EGCS notification forms be submitted through the maritime single window from all ships pre-arrival to Barbados. And BPA has been able to excellently implement this so that the maritime single window is not just now a clearance tool, it is also an environmental performance oversight tool for pollutants carried by ships. And having this early documentation puts us in a position to manage how these pollutants can be effectively disposed of by ships calling at our ports. But as I said, as to the overall operational success of MSW, Barbados Port Inc. is better placed to answer because MSW really happens at the ship-port interface. Thank you.
Good afternoon. David Jean-Marie, CEO of Barbados Port. As the director said, the maritime single window is part of the port community system developed by the port. It permits and it enables the smoother clearance of vessels so that, for example, cruise vessels, cargo vessels coming into port, they don't have the delays associated with the manual processes that were occurring before, and they can be pre-cleared electronically and start operations in a timely manner. That increases efficiency, reduces costs, allows tourists to start on time in terms of cruise vessels, those types of activities. The agencies, the other regulatory agencies also use the maritime single window for their processing also. So it basically improves the efficiency of the operations of the port.
All right, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. And of course, I must say, I've seen many impressive officers over the last week, but Ms. King remains an officer par excellence, for sure. I yield, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:25 p.m.
The question that this honorable chairman be suspended until 2:25 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 2:25 p.m.